before that?
What did I do? I was retired.
Oh.
And then I was in the medical diagnostics business. I co-founded a company in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
We sold it in 2007 for a lot of money, and I moved to Maui. Because I could go anywhere I wanted, and I decided Maui was the place. So, for obvious reasons. One thing that we don't often talk about, the facility is entirely off the electric grid. We have our own power.
Good deal.
Yeah, we don't even have a wire to the Maui power grid. So when the fire happened, you know, the power was out for many days.
Yeah.
So it's still out in some places in Lahaina.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but around this area, it was out for probably a week. And during that time, we were never out of power.
That's amazing.
Because solar panels. And that runs the factory. It's running the factory right now. That's an inverter cage. So that's converting the DC voltage to AC so we can use it. And then the excess energy is used to charge the batteries. Those are Tesla batteries, the big white rectangles. Those are their commercial batteries. They call them power packs. We've got 5 of them lined up in series.
Goodness.
So that stores enough energy to run the factory overnight. In fact, only about 50% of the energy is actually used to run the factory overnight. Then the next day, when the sun comes up, that takes over again, charges the batteries again, and at the same time, it's also running the factory.
Hey, Dad, you're on speaker. Oh, it's amazing, Daddy. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I saw how they wrapped up that tree. How did the tree get yellow, blue, and green?
Daddy, it is called a it must be right here, baby. Oh, it's supposed to be over here. It's called a eucalyptus. Now we
Okay. So the tea is called hibiscus.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Alright.
I'm not trying to ignore you, Daddy. We have a chocolate tour, and I'm trying to figure out where we got to go.
All right, and I got to go back. My phone's set up in there because I need to go record. Hibiscus, right?
Yes, sir. Hibiscus.
Stephen, go for it.
Thank you.
There's a little sign that said
Chocolate factory tour. And it's right here to our left, but in the meantime, unfortunately, we ran across this place where they're destroying or getting rid of the burned vehicles. This is where the chocolate factory is?
Chocolate factory right there.
Oh, cool. Okay. Come to support Maui, Lahaina businesses. Right across from this beautiful building. Look at that door, how pretty. Directly across, you have the yard where they're bringing in the cars from the Lahaina fires. Active tourism is important in this community. Everyone needs your time of service. If you can't do that, your financial support, and most definitely your prayers. God bless. I'm sorry, 3 days ago, the lady that's about to give us her tour said that the cars were piled 3 high here all the way around, but they've been staging them to a different area. Everybody around the island has been coming and moving cars to putting them in a different area, which will be the next stop to get them off the island. The next step into getting them off the island.
Shipping is free if you buy over $100, right? So that rate, that applies across everything. We pay the shipping. You don't have to pay the shipping as long as you buy more.
It's a perfect time to order for the holidays.
Yes, it is.
The reason I'm asking you that is because like
I'm going to show you this room. First of all, is what we call the bean storage room. Most of the beans are out in those shipping containers out under the solar array. We only bring in here what's going to be used in the short term, right? And then we need to acclimatize it because it's 90 degrees out there, and you don't want to start roasting at an elevated temperature or a variable temperature. You want it always to be the same. So it's about 70 in here. Bring them in, cool them down, get them ready for the roaster. The way we transfer them into the roaster is we use a vacuum system. That's a vacuum.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's not on right now, but when we're transferring beans, we just load the bag of beans in that bin, check it to make sure there's like no loose debris, and then start vacuuming it into the roaster, which is in the next room. And we'll see that in just a minute. But I wanted to show you one thing that Dan, who is our guru of cacao, and by the way, cacao and cocoa, they're the same thing. So if we're talking about cocoa, and I change the word and I say cacao, I didn't change the subject. It's the same thing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm tightening this down just to hold the beans in place. Dan uses this, as we call it, a guillotine for obvious reasons.
I love it.
Got to get the right end. It only goes in one way. And we just slide this down and we cut the beans in half. And the reason for doing that is this is for to evaluate them. And he also looks for what we call fissuring, which is the cracks and the way it's cracked. Yeah, so this fissuring, the color, all of these things have relevance to somebody that has a level of experience with looking at this. So Dan grades the beans. He decides how to blend them based upon the bag-to-bag variation. And then we blend them all so that from one bag to another, they're the same, right? But he's the expert at this. These are dried, but they're not totally dry. They have about 5% water content in them, so they're stable. You can actually store them for years, and they don't change flavor over that course. When you crack the pod, there's a white fruit pulp that surrounds the seeds, the beans, and you just take all of that, you put it into a box, and there's natural yeast around in the environment. So that white fruit pulp has got a lot of sugar in it, and the yeast, that's their food, right?
That's right.
So they start fermenting that and converting it to alcohol. And then a secondary step is that bacteria convert the alcohol to vinegar.
Yes.
You know, in chocolate making is because that's how the fine flavors are developed.
Okay.
If you just take a raw bean, you do not ferment it, it'll be very bitter, and your chocolate will be very bitter.
Okay.
Right? So poorly fermented chocolate is not poorly fermented cacao is not a good thing. It's not good for the final product. Right? So you have to do that step well. Dan happens to be a world expert at it. We've actually won an international award of excellence for our cacao, the beans itself, not just the chocolate.
Wow.
There's an international panel that judges cacao from across the world.
Now, is that the cacao that's grown here on
Yeah,
Maui?
it's grown here.
How much do you have to import also to keep up with your sales?
We have another main farm that we import from is in Ecuador. This is the bag from there. It's called Costa Esmeraldas. And the good thing about this is that Dan is their consultant.
Awesome.
And he has been for 12 years. So he actually controls what goes on down at that
That's
farm.
amazing. Okay.
And
Should keep
he
your-
goes there twice a year. And one of those times during the harvest season, make sure they're doing everything right. And then he grades the lots, just like I'm telling you about now. He grades the lots. He determines how they're blended. Guess who gets the best blends?
You do.
Yeah.
Love that.
Go
love
Gunner.
that. Well, I love it because I don't own that farm, but I control that farm.
Amen.
Through Dan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right.
A lot better than owning it, actually. You know, when you own a farm,
Do
you
we
know
get to
there's
meet
lots of
Dan?
that.
Because Dan sounds like the king of chocolate.
Well, he's working at home right now
Oh,
today. He's in the
Dan.
office because it's a rotating coffee roaster, basically. A drum roaster. It's made by Diedrich. This is really the only piece of equipment that's made in the United States in here because most of the equipment is Italian. Nobody.
Wait, that makes so much sense to me,
Yeah.
though.
Nobody in the United States makes this kind of equipment at this scale.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to go bigger, you can put a design in front of somebody to custom fabricate it for you. But if you go smaller, that's too small for us.
Yes.
Right? So we had to go to the Italians to get most of this. But this is a coffee roaster made in Idaho. Yeah, so we don't operate it like a coffee roaster. Coffee is roasted about 450 degrees. We don't get higher than 250. And the main purpose of roasting cacao is to remove all of the remaining water. Because those beans I showed you have 5% water. That's too much. You can't make chocolate. Chocolate has no water in it. That's why it's so safe. It's why it sits on the shelf at room temperature. Nothing can grow in it. Right? If it had water in it,
That's right.
you know,
Fungus.
microorganisms
Yes.
could start
It's
growing.
interesting.
And we never get above 250. and all of the water is removed. And we also have done a little bit of flavor development because roasting does change flavor. But if you over roast, you lose flavor across the board. If you under roast, you retain some bitter flavors that you don't really want. So there's a window, optimum window, and we try to hit that every time. We have it programmed into the machine, but Dan is actually tasting the beans. We have a little sampling mechanism here. While it's roasting, we can pull out some beans
Yes.
and taste them. And Dan has a palate. He's developed a palate so that he knows what that taste is going to translate to into chocolate.
Okay.
Right?
Wow, so his skill is his nose and his mouth.
Yeah, and that takes,
Years
decades
to
to
develop, yes.
develop that.
And world travel, right?
World travel, all that stuff.
I got Louisiana.
And we add it to what we call a winnower. You know what winnowing is, right? Separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yes.
That's what this does, but we're not using wheat, we're using cacao beans. So they're vibrated down here in the cracks. There's some rotating jaws in this area that crack them, and they pass through the chute on this side. And while they're falling through the chute, we have a vacuum going. So the light stuff, which is the shell, vacuumed off.
Wow.
The dense stuff, which is the meat, that falls through and we collect it. And that's what's basically in these bins right now. This is what we call nibs. This is the cracked center of the bean, and I'll give you each a bean. So you can just crack one in your fingers. And the easiest way to do this is to just sort of rotate it in your fingers. You get the shell will crack.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just like rotate it like that. The shell will crack.
Let me
And
watch you do it again.
You can see the inside, right? And the reason I want to show you this is I want to show you how thin the shell is.
Yes.
All right, the shell is really thin, and that's why it's easy to vacuum off because it's very light.
Yes.
But I wouldn't eat these because actually you can eat these. They're roasted. What you don't want to eat is the raw stuff that I just showed you. What we're tasting now are the Maui nibs. They have a very fruity acidity to them. But the other thing I want you to notice is that why doesn't this taste really strong?
It is very mild. I noticed
It's very mild,
Very
and
mild.
the reason that you don't get the full flavor is your mouth isn't a very good grinding mechanism,
Right.
and the flavor of cacao is only released when it's milled down to really tiny particles, on the order of 15 microns, which is a quarter of the width of a human hair. These are your mouth can't do that. It's just not possible, right? So you can't. Yeah, well, you can't release the full flavor. Right, so what we do in the next step, which I'll show you, take it down to that very fine particle size, and then it becomes the flavor becomes very accessible. So take one of those three here.
Yep.
One of those, yeah. Now this is 100% cacao, but this is made into a chocolate.
Thank you.
It has no sugar in it, so it is what you just tasted, but with no sugar
wow.
added, and it's milled, so you're getting the full flavor experience out of it. Right? It's a lot more intense than what you just tasted.
That's very
Half of what you see in here is cocoa butter, and half of it is cocoa solids. The solids are where the flavor is. The butter is just the fat that melts in your mouth. So the chocolate melts in your mouth, it's the cocoa butter that's melting. And it's releasing those tiny particles, and they are disintegrating, and that's what you taste. Right? And in dark chocolate, there's only two particles. There's sugar, and there's the cacao solids. And the rest is cocoa butter. So it's only three ingredients in dark chocolate if it's made the way we make it. Cocoa butter, the cacao solids, and sugars. And those two ingredients, sugar and cacao, are milled down to this very fine particle size. So the flavor is immediately released as soon as it melts. Right? So the way chocolate melts in your mouth actually matters, because that's how the particles are released, right? So if you want to eat frozen chocolate, that's your choice, right? But it's going to taste different because of the way it melts. From what, if you were to have it at room temperature and pop it in, it'll melt a lot faster. You get a faster release of flavor compared to steel ball bearings. Go ahead and take a look in. The stainless steel ball bearings, they haven't been coated in chocolate right now because.
I can see that. That's
Yeah.
Look at that, Sam.
Right, but those are stainless steel ball bearings, and when it's operating, they're rotating at 60 RPM.
That's amazing. They're little chocolate balls.
Yeah, Yeah, but they're stainless steel. So what happens is they rotate at 60 RPM, and when they hit each other, they crush what's between them, right? So that's the milling process. So it takes what you see out there, and it reduces it to smaller and smaller particle size, right? And I did skip one step, but we'll get back to it. So in this machine, this is the point where we melt the cocoa butter. So this machine operates at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The cocoa butter is completely melted. It's a liquid when we process it because it's half cocoa butter, right? So that's the liquid. And the solids are what we're getting the particle size down, milling them to finer and finer particle size. So that's what happens is it takes an hour to mill it to get it to the consistency that you just tasted.
Right.
Right? And then we add sugar in a second step. Right? So sugar is also milled down to the same fine particle size, but in a second step. The whole process takes about 4 hours, and then we transfer it into the next room. But once this is done, it's basically finished chocolate. Right? You could eat it. It tastes like finished chocolate. It's not completely processed. So that's what this machine does. We break it down. And this is the second phase of the breakdown. So I'm going to let this run until this is depleted, because this is the last.
Yeah, I wish you could smell this.
You don't know what you can see this. I happen to be doing it.
No, this is awesome.
And so the cocoa butter starts to melt.
Oh, wow.
And the
Okay.
cocoa butter is the glue that's holding it together, right? So when it cools off, it will fall apart. The cocoa butter no longer.
Let's get that last little bit right there.
The Spaniards that conquered Central and South America, they brought cacao back to Europe,
Yes.
and it was really, a very unusual thing for Europeans. But they were making a drink out of it also. They would boil it in water, create like a unique flavored drink, and that's all they did with it. Nobody had figured out how to make chocolate at that point in time. So it wasn't until the late 1800s
That
that they
chocolate.
figured that out. And that was figured out by, the Cadbury family?
Yes,
The
yes.
Cadbury chocolates.
She
Yeah.
loves the Cadbury egg.
Yeah. So Cadbury was the first company to really develop the modern process. And then Nestle, which is in Switzerland,
Yes.
saw it and copied it. And then Hershey in Pennsylvania saw
Right.
it and copied it.
Yes.
In fact, Hershey went even farther because Cadbury is a Quaker family, and they have a very strong ethic about how to treat workers. And so they actually created a town centered around their factory. They built their factory, and then they built a town around it because they want their workers to walk to work,
Yes.
right? And same thing happened in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Hershey saw that and said, that's a good idea. I'm doing that.
Yes,
Right?
I've been there.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So that's why Hershey, Pennsylvania looks like it is, because it's
Yeah,
basically copied.
and it's amazing. We'll
copied.
go one day.
This is ready to go in the mill. Yeah, it's really crushed and ready to go. And then I'll be doing that next week. So this is really, and this is untempered chocolate. It is, everything's in it. And it came straight out of the ball mill, but it did not go through the next steps that I'm going to show you now. Right?
It's very good.
It is good, but it's, we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. So that's getting ready to mold, right? We're going to start molding pretty soon. In fact, after your tasting, they'll probably be molding, so you can see through the window. You can see it operating it. But this is these machines are what are called conches. So these pipes are all water jacketed. This is off, but this one's on. So this pipe is at about 45 centigrade, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we pump the chocolate from that room and that machine into here, it stays liquid, right? And then this machine is also heated, right, to keep the chocolate melted. And if you look in here, you see there's not that much left. We're down at the end of this batch, and this batch had about 300 kilograms, 660 pounds.
I could just dump
So
in
there's
that.
only about 50 kilograms left in there right now.
That's so amazing.
So most of it's been molded already.
I would weigh
That's beautiful.
600 pounds if I worked for you.
Yeah, so that's, one thing I want you to see is this thing over here on the left looks like a gear. And what it does is it spins during the process. We call it an emulsifier. It spins at like 2,000 RPM, really fast. And what it creates is a very fast moving chocolate right where the gear is, but outside of it, the chocolate's not moving much. And so you get a velocity change, right? So you get friction between what's moving fast and what's not. And what that does is it disrupts any aggregate. So some of the reason you tasted that granularity in the chocolate you just had is because there are particles that are aggregated, stuck
Like
together.
soil.
Right, so you get big particles.
So you're tilling it. You're
So
tilling your
I'm
chocolate.
basically refining that to the point where all of that stuff is broken up, and it lowers the viscosity, it makes it easier to mold, and also improves the mouthfeel, so it melts really smoothly.
So basically that's
Yeah, the most important thing about
This
this
takes
machine is
24
that
hours, he said.
It blows those aggregates apart, and that's why our finished chocolate doesn't have that granularity that you just experienced because of this machine mostly.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So this machine, you transfer the chocolate into a melting tank. These are all melting tanks. We have two of these machines because we have independent production lines for milk chocolate and dark chocolate. So our dark chocolate has no milk in it. And that's important for some people, but it also is important for labeling because you probably know you're a food manufacturer.
Yes.
You have to label things that have allergens, and milk is one of the 8 major allergens.
Yes.
So if we shared machinery, we would have to label our dark chocolate as contains traces of milk.
Yeah.
That's right.
You'll be
yeah.
contaminating.
Yeah, but we don't.
It's not contamination, it's just,
Yeah, but we have independent production lines,
Yeah.
so our dark chocolate never touches milk.
That was very, very
Right?
smart.
Therefore, people that are allergic to milk can eat our dark chocolate.
Including
So this is
vegans.
just a melting tank. It holds chocolate. It's got, I don't know, 150 kilograms of chocolate.
you're not dropping your ball.
Look at it. I got it around my
Yeah.
neck. It ain't going, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so that's just melted. That came from that tank, and it feeds this machine.
Excuse me, Gunnar. How does it get from that tank to this tank?
Oh, we roll this over there
Yeah.
and put it under there and pump it in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, it's got wheels on it.
You see
Okay.
the gloves on the
Oh,
end right there?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we just roll it over there.
Okay.
And this machine is now hooked up to this machine, so it feeds on demand. It feeds chocolate. So we got a sensor. Right now the sensor is up.
Oh, look at it pouring.
Right now the sensor is up because we've disconnected that machine from this one, so it's not going to feed any chocolate. And we've already flavored this. This is a flavor we call OMG, Orange Mango Guava. And it's dark milk chocolate. And so they're going to mold this. They haven't started cooling it because they're in there wrapping bars. But as soon as they're done with that, we'll start cooling this for molding, which should happen about an hour after they start cooling it. And the molding process, so let me talk about tempering. So what's happening now is it's just stirring, it's recirculating the chocolate through this mechanism up here and coming out there, so it's just recirculating. But this mechanism in here is a refrigerator.
Okay.
There's a water jacket around this to keep it hot.
So it's just cool, yeah.
The fat in chocolate is called a triglyceride. You know what triglycerides are. It's the main energy source for your body. That's the fat that you burn for energy. The triglycerides are the only fat in chocolate. And they're a molecule that has 3 long fatty acid chains. And when it's melted, they're just flopping around. So as you start cooling it, they want to find a state of lower energy, and they start to interlace and create ladders and crystals. And that's what tempering chocolate is. It's creating a particular crystal structure, and that's very stable. And actually, you can think of a piece of chocolate as a uniform crystal of cocoa butter with those particles, cacao and sugar particles, just suspended in it, right? But the thing that melts in your mouth is the cocoa butter. The particles, they just disintegrate. They don't actually melt. They just disintegrate when they're that small. So this is being recirculated. As soon as it starts cooling it, you'll get to a point, this is at 44.6 degrees, that's centigrade. So that's about 118 Fahrenheit. So it stays melted. But as we cool it, we'll cool it to 30 degrees, which is 86 Fahrenheit. And that's your skin temperature, right? So when you get to that point, it wants to crystallize. It wants to form these crystals. But as long as you keep it moving, you prevent it from becoming solid chocolate, right? So the point of this machine is just to get it to that point and hold it there. And then we pump it when we're ready to mold, pump it through that jacketed pipe and into this, we call it a doser. And this is where the chocolate gets dispensed into molds. We have a plate at the bottom that distributes the chocolate. We have pistons on this side that give precise amounts every time. And it's distributed into molds that look like this. So this is a bar mold, and what they're doing in the room back there is they're wrapping bars. So you might see some of that when you walk in there.
Wait, y'all have to.
Very precise amounts. And then we got a vibrator there that lets it,
Shake
smooths
it
it out,
along,
shakes
right?
it.
Yes, sir.
So that's the one in the far distance, and then it goes down to the end. It gets transferred to the middle belt, would come back this way, and then it gets transferred to this belt, and it goes out the end. So it takes about 15 minutes to go through this tunnel. And by
Once
the
it's
end of
molded.
it, it's fully solid, and you could wrap it almost immediately.
I'm sorry.
This is a wrapper, but it wraps the small pieces. So let me give you
Wow,
an
that's
example of
intricate.
that. I'll go around that way and show you an example. Stay where you are. Filled. Once the chocolate is tempered and it's solidified, it actually contracts and it pulls away from the mold. So what you see here, this is all air. The only place where it's actually connected to the mold is this little dark spot, and that'll just leave a slight mark on the chocolate. It's really hardly noticeable. We call it a release mark. So for the most part, these things, if you turn this upside down,
They're everywhere.
and if you're good at it, and you do it properly, the way it works is like this. Falls out, and it's just like that, rows, nice rows. And then you push it into the conveyor with this. This is, by the way, a windshield. And so we just push the rows in when this is operating. I'm going to show you how it operates, but I don't have labels set up. And then when it's at this level, it goes down here. There's labels and glue pop. There's little prongs that put glue spots on the bottom of the label. The label's transferred and wrapped around the piece.
Wow, okay.
Right, so all that happens at 90 a minute. Right? So you
90 a minute.
You gotta be good at doing this.
Yes, or you back it up.
Wow. That's how they wrap the chocolate in small pieces. What's this?
Well, that's the wheel. You can manually rotate the cycle using that wheel.
Oh, okay.
And the bars are going down the conveyor, and the film is being unraveled, and it's formed around the bar, right? And it's sealed underneath. So this seal right here, that happens underneath. You can't see it. And then at the end, it's cut off and sealed at the end, and then drops down. But that's how we wrap it.
Having fun? Aloha.
So this operates at 30 bars a minute.
How many? 38?
30 bars.
30 bars? Wow.
And that's a comfortable speed. I'm not rushing too much. Yeah.
Sorry, my
Yeah, now we're at 35. Oop, what came out?
yeah. Not at all. This is amazing. Thank you.
Well, we can move on. All of our dark milk products have white labels to distinguish them as having milk in it. And all of the dark chocolates
that's
have
smart.
dark green labels, so no milk.
This would be me.
And that would be me. Yeah, we're complete opposites with our
Yeah, well,
chocolate choices.
you should try both because you'll be surprised. Most people that don't like dark chocolate like our dark chocolate. It's not bitter at all.
I can't wait to taste it.
So you'll try it upstairs. It's full of cereals.
Look, Sam, this is finished goods.
In general, this mostly stocks our retail store and our online business. If we have a big order like we do from hotels and other places, we put that all together and it gets shipped out the next day. So it's not sitting around. Right?
Oh, wow.
These are the cacao nibs that we tasted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can buy them. Some people like to buy them.
Okay. That's the nibs we tried in the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean they're sort of nice to sprinkle on things. They have a nice little crunch, but like I said, you don't get a lot of flavor out of
Right,
it.
I'm
You
a-
just can't. You can't grind it down.
They're nice.
Yeah, that's a very nice touch.
Well, how do you add the peppermint? I'm looking here.
Like over there, he was telling you that they had
Oh, I missed
flavor
that.
in-
I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are all orders they're prepping to go out.
Oh, look
And,
at that. It's
they-
pretty.
You know,
What a great Christmas present, everyone.
right, we get an order and then we fill that, mark it off,
Mm-hmm.
and put it in a box, and then it gets shipped out.
That's a beautiful idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that looks really nice for Christmas.
Yes, it
Red-
does.
Red ribbon.
It's gorgeous.
Okay, let's move on out here.
Yes.
Just imagine.
He said 7,000 people are currently in the hotels.
We didn't get to do much.
Your profits, your tours, obviously.
Oh yeah, we're not making money right now. We're losing money.
You're losing money.
Because you know the number of people on the west side is really small. I mean, already the number of people typically come to Maui at this time of year is 6,000 to 7,000 a day, right? And now it's down to 4, and most of them are going to South Maui,
That's right.
Because they were not affected at all,
That's right.
right? So West Maui has got not that many people staying here that are actually guests at the hotel. They got a lot of displaced people, but they're not buying chocolate. They don't have any money.
They don't have any money. That's correct. That's correct. So
Right?
if
So a little tough right now.
yeah, so the people that you had working for you prior to the fire, were they able to come back, or would you
Yeah, we
have to do
have
like?
5 people have lost their residences. 2 of them own their homes. The others were renting, right? So they're all in temporary places. With the two people that lost their homes come back to work. They need work.
That's right. That's right. That's what we do in South Louisiana.
Yeah. So
We work while we're stressing.
Yeah,
Where we're
well-
gonna live, what we're gonna eat.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the
Have to live, you have to
government
survive.
can't take care of everything for you,
No,
right?
that's what
No.
we say. You got to get on your feet.
Yeah. Maui Strong is the #1 fund that people are donating to, and they've collected about $130 million. And they distribute it to nonprofits. They themselves are a nonprofit, but they're like a, umbrella, and then all those other nonprofits are getting grants. They're the ones that are actually doing the work on the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's
we
how it's
appreciate it.
working. There are other, obviously, Red Cross, the FEMA people, they're all here. They're all doing things, but the main source of money is the Maui Strong Fund. So if you want,
Ooh.
we call it the chocolate vault. Yeah, there's about $1 million of chocolate in here.
$1 million.
This is the chocolate.
So what we do is we store the chocolate that is not molded in sort of big blocks. So this is an untempered chocolate, right? This is about 25 pounds.
How much money am I looking at in chocolate?
That
Yes,
right there. Well, it's 10 kilograms times 250, so $2,500.
That one tray you guys
Yeah,
$2,500.
yeah. If it's
Wow.
molded. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't sell it like this.
Right,
We mold
right.
it and put it in bars.
Gold, baby. That's gold.
It's the gold of chocolate.
Yeah,
we're
chocolate
looking
is
at.
sort of like gold. It's
It's
so-
worth more than actual money right now. You can actually eat this.
Yeah. So this is all untempered chocolate. It has to be
Wow.
melted and go through that molding process in order to get to final product, right? So we hold a lot of it like that, and then on this side is mostly finished. These are remnants from a molding run. So we remelt those. We don't
Oh, yeah.
waste them.
Yeah.
Right. We
Zero waste, that's
we
right.
remelt them into the next run. And we make about 25 different chocolates right now. So we got a lot of, different SKUs, codes, right? But what's in these bins, like I said earlier, even out there is finished wrapped chocolate. This is dark chocolate over here. This is the main thing we store in finished form. This is the main thing we store. The dark green labels are the dark chocolate. So all this is dark finished. And then the cardboard boxes here, they all have the mold. They have the bars like you saw out there. They were wrapping, right? So these are the wrapped bars, just like you saw out there, right?
Wow.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we don't put them in final packaging until we need to replenish the finished goods.
What temperature are we in right now?
So
About
it's
70?
64.
64. I knew it was a little
68
nipply.
outside.
Yeah, 64 in here,
It's perfect.
which is perfect because it's cool enough. It'll extend the shelf life of the dark chocolate.
We want on it's 65. It's right there.
Yeah, well, that's, if you take a real thermometer, it's going to be say 64, I think. But in any case, we store it that way because it's not too cold. If you store it really cold, then you have to worry about water condensing on it when you bring it out, right? And we definitely don't want water condensing
no
on our
water.
chocolate, right? No water in chocolate. So that's why we keep it at this temperature and not colder.